Welcome. Hello everyone. I am Sornambiga from the Department of Microbiology, SNS College of Nursing. Today we will explore an important and interesting branch of microbiology that is called mycology, the study of fungi. That mycology is a scientific study of fungi, a diverse group of organisms that includes mold, yeast and mushrooms. Often they overlook that fungi is a play and vital role of ecosystem and industry and medicines. Fungi are the group of living organisms that are different plants and animals and bacteria. They include mold, yeast and mushrooms. Fungi do not have chlorophylls, so they cannot make their own food like a plants. Instead of, they absorb the nutrition from other organic material. They play an important role in breaking down dead metals, but can some also causes disease of the animals and plants, and they can able to cause the disease or other humans also. Then which of these organisms can say in the fungus? All of that is a fungi. Let's learn more about these organisms. What are fungi? The fungi is a kingdom is called fungal kingdom. And one of the fungi kingdom which these things of that fungi are not animals and plants. Fungi are the living organism because they carried out the vital function of the interaction, reproduction and nutrition by themselves. Some fungi like a yeast or unicellular microorganisms not visible in planes and sites observe them. We can use microscope other fungi or multicellular organisms. It's composed of many cells grouped together forming long thin and strings then hyphae. In that hyphae or that reproductive structure, the microorganisms and the mushrooms and the mold contains spores by which fungi reproduce. We usually find the fungi under the ground of piece of wood or that decayed food. How the fungi are formed? The fungi are that forms the many way of eukaryotic cells that eukaryotic are enveloped by the cellular walls and contain no chlorophylls, remember that, and they are the not animals and plants of fungi cells and grouping and do not have the tissues and case of animals, and they have the hyphae and edible on toxic fungi. Some of the fungi are we can able to eat like mushrooms. That mushrooms and toffles are careful someone can that we can able to eat these type of fungi, and that mushroom is that one of the familiar known product in our cases. And the cheeses have the fungi them, that is a Roquefort cheese. For examples, there are the fungi harmful to our health that may cause skin or lung diseases. Some fungi are produce antibiotic substances, uses of the medicine and fight a bacterial infection. And one of the most and well-known widely used antibiotic is a penicillin. The penicillin is discovered by that well-known scientist that Alexander Fleming in the 20th century. We know about that Alexander Fleming about that penicillin introductions. And fungi can be found in that air, plant and water. They can mainly transmitted by these wave of materials, and contact the person poor hygiene and poor sanitizing may be the reason why the people get that infected by fungi. In nature, the mushroom produce spores that travel into the air. Until they reach this place, they can germinate. And the next move on to the heterotrophs. What is heterotrophs? The fungi are the heterotrophs. The meaning of the heterotrophs is nothing but feed on other living being. That feed on our living being in the sense they can able to get the food from that other living being also. Then why the fungi are decomposers? And the decomposers are that source of soil nutrition that plant and other living being. That feed on can fungi are very important for that human being, and the planet thank for them to make the humans being can that planet thanks to make food and medicinal purpose of the fungus to necessary to process many biomes and then decompose the organic material about the fungi also. Next, we are moving on to the content. What are the objectives we are known in that syllabus? In that objectives, that introduction of the fungi we are going to see about from this topic. And what are the biological structure of the fungi? That is nothing but cell structure, growth, development and physiology of fungi, that is nutrition, temperature, UV light and water, and classification of fungi. And we are moving on to the classification. Now, what is fungi? The fungi are the eukaryotic organism. Unlike plants, they lack of chlorophylls. So they don't have the chlorophyll to reproduce like a plant, that is unicellular like yeast or multicellular like mold. Then mold. Mold are that multicellular filamentous called the hyphae forming in that network known as mycelium. That mycelium is in the one of the part of fungi. Yeast on the other hand, that unicellular reproduced by the way of budding. The hyphae can be septa. The heta is that with cross walls and cynostic without cross walls. Let us talk about to closer look hyphae. What is that hyphae? Hyphae is nothing but we are known about that hyphas and eukaryotic heterotrophics and hemotrophics in that microorganism. Already I told it is have no chlorophylls and no non-motile, and they are not motile one place to another place. And it is a thread of cells that hyphase of the thread of cells and transverse the cell wall. It is called septae and hyphical anastomosis in that process. In the storage component is called glycogen. They have that storage glycogen components. That filamentous fungi is called hyphae, that is called filamentous hyphae, and that maybe have that myceliums and bundle of myceliums have tangled with the cells. Next, moving on to that yeast cells. That yeast cells are that unicellular fungi that reproduce that asexual, often budding, and reproduced by the sexual by forming that spores. These are I given some examples of the pictures by the way of lactophenol cotton blue test. In that fungal picture through the microscopic view we are see like this only. And what is hyphae? The hyphae is so that designed to increase the surface of the fungi and facilitate that absorption materials like a root of the plant. They are absorb the material by the way of hyphae and may grow fast, that up to 1 kilometer per day they can able to grow as the way of spread 1% and another way to by the way of like a bread mold and yeast mold and cheese mold. Maybe it's a cynostic membrane, no septors between the walls, and the septum may be present with that pores through which the cytoplasm can flow, moving nutrition throughout the fungus. And parasitic fungi. What is parasitic fungi? That have modified hyphae called hostostria. That is that the penetration of the host cell but remaining outside of the cell membrane wall. This is a one example and clarified picture of that hypha, septae and protoplasmic wall in that picture I gave. That is a clarified picture of that hyphae, that is have the nucleus and septum and pores in that diagram. And we are moving on to the part and we clarify about that what are the hyphae in that structure. Now that cynostates, these are the cynostates where that cross and getting the nutrition from other living things. In that picture, we are deeply known about what is septas and what is cynocetes and what is spore and how they are getting food from other living hosts. Now, moving on to the next, what is septa? In this picture, we are clarified about septa. It is an intermediate wall into that one section to another section. Now, the body of the fungus. The body of the fungus having hyphae, septa and mycelium. What is septa? The septa is that the cylindrical filamentous structure we explained in that previous also, and that septas are that cross walls in divided one chain to another chain, and the mycelium is that connected to the hyphae. The mycelia are helps to connect at one hyphae to another hyphae that have that pores also to connect and reproduce and purposes. And what is the physiology of fungi? That is aeration, nutrition, water, temperature, hydrogen, ion materials and light. And let's talk about one by one. That is the aeration. The fungi includes obligatively aerobic species. It is a Zygomycota is a one of the best example and anaerobic method of that obligately, that is the rumen fungi. That organism can obtain energy by the oxidative, that is called reproductive material or respiratory material from the metabolism or the fermentation. It used to oxidize by the way of oxygens and generate that energy by the way of oxygen. However, it is essential to biosynthesis process and unsaturated by the fatty acid process. And some vitamins also we can get from that by the way of aeration. What are the fungal nutrition? There are two methods of fungal nutrition we are getting from another plant by the way of absorption mode. Then next one is the extracellular mode. That absorption mode, they are survey and absorbing the material from other plants by the way of hyphae. And extracellular, that is getting the nutrition from protein, carbohydrate, lipids, and other material from the deprogrammized complex by the way of carbon and energy sources. Now, let's moving on to the mycelia and the nutrition requirement. What are the nutrition requirements we can get from that mycelium and that fungus is called carbon, nitrogen, and other materials are ammonium, amino acids, and nitrate. In that nitrogen, we are also the synthesis of amino acid from proteins, purines, and primitives, and glucosamine, chitins also something is at various vitamins. Now, that carbon that needs the synthesis of that carbohydrate, lipids, nucleic acid, and proteins also we can able to get from that. And morphology of the yeast, that unicellular, round or oval size. I mentioned the size of that yeast and budding process, that binary fission and budding. That binary fission of that, sometimes it can that yeast cells budding and binary fission process, and it produce the next generation of the cells. And morphology, this is the morphology of the fungus, that environmental structure. They can usually we can grow in that laboratory method by the way of enriched media. And I give some live example pictures of the fungi. And what are the classification? The fungi or the eukaryotic organism do not contain chlorophylls but have that cell wall and filamentous structure. They produce the spores also by the way of decomposed dead organic material. Then, what are the medical important fungi and four phyla? That is Ascomycota, Basidiomycota, Zygomycota, and Deuteromycota. These are the basically medical important of the fungi. Now, the end of the session, we are conclude from that mycology classification, and this is the. I hope this video will um, helpful for your studies purpose, and thank you once again.